Hello, everyone. Welcome to YouTube Success. We're here doing a YouTube podcast with a LinkedIn expert. Who knew you could just change your mind and do something ridiculous on your own podcast? Here we are. And we were just talking about ridiculousness of podcasts. So here I am. The thing is, it's called YouTube Success. And we're talking about growing YouTube channels and all of that kind of stuff. But what I wanted to do, and what the reason why I have this podcast in the first place, is because I have a great network of wonderful people around the world. And of course, when I created my list of people, Judi was one of those people I was hoping would say yes to come on the podcast. And here she is. So, yes, it's not specifically a YouTube thing, but there's so much value here. We're going to be talking about personal branding. We're going to be talking about the epic speed at which Judi has grown on LinkedIn back in 2018. But, loads more stuff has happened since then and a few other things as well. So, if you're in my world and maybe you've not heard of, somehow you've missed Fox Rocks and you've not heard of Judi yet, then Judi, I'd love you to do your own intro and tell us a little bit about you and what people need to know, really.
Well, all they have to know is hashtag Fox Rocks and that I got started really actively posting videos on LinkedIn in around 2017, 2018, and definitely hit several million views very quickly. It is a amazing platform. I doubled down there. We'll talk about how LinkedIn's the only platform I used for 4 years straight. That's it. The only social media platform. So that is the power of focus and really getting in on a platform and doubling down. And I have now been listed as a top voice on LinkedIn by LinkedIn, and they've given me the top voice of social media, strategy, and sales. I love sales. So I have been working with clients since 2018 with my LinkedIn Business Accelerator, and then bing, bing, boom. I'm done with my intro. Let's hit the ground running.
There you go. It's always, yeah, I don't know about you, but it's always awkward when someone asks you to do your own intro because people do it and they tell you your intro and you're like, oh my God, that sounds amazing. Who wrote that? It weren't me. But so I like to put people on the spot because actually, it's funny. You kind of forget what you've done until people ask you about it. And then you start to think about, oh yeah, I did that thing. I did that thing. And we'll talk about some of this as we go through these questions. But the first thing I wanted to talk about, most importantly, is how we met. Well, look, let's be honest. Let's tell the people really how I think we met. But it's
Yeah.
been quite a while since that time, but it's really about a community because in September 2018, I decided at that point that I wanted to start a YouTube channel. I looked at something like September the 17th of 2018. And about a week later, I booked a ticket to go to Vid Summit in LA. So it was kind of a big deal for me because I decided and I was absolutely hooing myself because I was going to go to the other side of the world where there's a whole bunch of YouTubers that, as far as I could tell, they were the best YouTubers in the world. But I thought if I'm going to go and learn from anybody, I should go to something like that, right? And it seemed really reasonable price wise. So I goes there. And, I did what I normally do before events, and this is a tip for anyone that's going to events. Like, go on Twitter, go on Instagram, go on LinkedIn, all of the socials, and find the hashtags and find like the event hashtag, or search for the event name, and you'll find a bunch of people. So if you've never been to an event before, you don't know anyone, like I didn't know anyone there, just go. The best place for me, strangely enough, was Twitter. I found Rob and a bunch of other people. And what
Ooh,
happened
I'm
when I
going to
got
add
there?
something. I'm going to add
Got Yeah, go
something.
for it. Yeah, go for it. I'd love you to.
Go find all the speakers and join
Yes.
your comments because the speakers are kind of a bit of a hub of they want visibility on the event and that they're speaking. So you know they're going to be posting. Want to find some content to grab onto without knowing who's going to be there yet? That's a good place to start.
Yeah, I love that. Actually, when I was looking back for the stories of how we met, I did find some of the old 2018 stuff and I found loads of things that I'd not seen. When you're at the event and the feeds are going really crazy, like loads of
Oh, yeah.
pictures of stuff of me in drunken position in photos. So, like, you know, yeah, definitely the comments. That's how I found people. I would see announcements on Vid Summit. They would say so and so speaking, and then a bunch of people that would comment saying, I'm going, can't wait to be there. And then I would
Yes.
connect with them and that kind of thing. So, yeah, brilliant advice. But for me, the thing is, I was really nervous, right? At 2018, I was 35. I'd been public speaking around the world, so there was no problem being on stage, anything like that. But going to an event and not knowing anybody, especially the other side of the world, I was really nervous about it. But what happened is when I met Rob and I met yourself and a few other people there, is I found that everybody was welcoming, right? There's nothing better than going to an event where someone says to you, hey, come and join me for a coffee or come to dinner. And as I said to you before, like, I think that's where we ended up meeting is we went for dinner and there was like 30 people and you've just got to be really brave about it and just say, what are you doing after the event? Is anybody going for a drink or anyone going for dinner? And you'll find yourself invited to these great events. And personally, for me, one of the things I loved is just how friendly people like you were. We can build up this picture that, oh, it's Judi, she's had all these millions of views on LinkedIn and feel a little bit standoffish. So I guess what I'd ask you is, how do you feel when someone comes up to you and they're in that? How do you help them out? What would you do for them?
So we all have our either if it's coping with feeling awkward or
Yeah,
maybe let's call it the art of just standing around because standing around and not necessarily rushing to do something because guess what? I don't know where I'm going to dinner sometimes at these events. I don't know what the next kind of gathering thing will be, not necessarily. And that's kind of that art of not rushing away from maybe a circle. If you're standing in a circle and you feel really awkward, nobody's paying that much attention to you. It's called the spotlight effect,
yeah,
where we think the spotlight's on us, but actually people are engrossed in their conversation. You may feel really awkward standing there, but if you keep standing there and you keep kind of popping in or being, you know, smiling and just nodding along with whatever conversation's happening and you don't totally get weird, I guess. You'll end up being there long enough for them to go, "Hey, we're headed here," like, or you'll be naturally part of the conversation that keeps rolling. But yeah, it feels awkward sometimes standing there, especially when you feel like you don't really know everyone in this circle or what's happening.
yeah.
So
And I love the art of standing around because I've definitely been in that position plenty of times.
you don't
And
look as awkward as you think you look, I
no,
think. That's
and
the
I
thing.
think other people are the same, right? Like, a lot of people are in the same position. I met a lady called Christina at the time when I got there. I was standing in the queue. She happened to have her in the line. Sorry, that's the American term.
Like the queue. It's all good.
Good. We happened to have a channel. Her name was Make Video Greece, and mine was Make Video UK. It was like really weird that we happened to be standing
Oh,
together.
that's cool.
And she traveled all the way from Greece. She knew nobody as well, and we ended up hanging out together for like the 2-3 days. And I would introduce her to people. She would introduce her to people as we met. So just finding buddies, I think, as you go into these events is so important. And actually, finding these little dinners where you're not planning what you're doing for dinner and you end up somewhere where some of the best connections and community is created. So definitely get involved in that stuff.
Oh, I really like holding things so I feel less awkward. So
Yeah.
now I have a bag that's a fox, obviously, because hello, my last name is Fox, if you can't tell. And the bag that I hold now just has random fox stickers. So I now have what I call a networking prop. Anyone can have a networking prop. You don't have to have like a fun last name called Fox. You could have I don't even know, like a little Rubik's cube. Like you could have anything and it's something you're holding on to that like a little conversation starter or something. I'm just giving some ideas here. And then the last thing is have a buddy, have a friend that even when you're in these groups and you're doing the art of looking awkward and standing around, you could, if you can't tip over to that yet, you could buddy up with somebody that also is like, hey, I'm also new here. I don't really know anyone. And you can look awkward together in a group, which actually makes neither of you look that awkward.
Yeah, totally. I love that. And having a prop is a good thing.
Having that now.
What I'm about to say is maybe not true, but I don't think anything's that awkward if you take something. I've seen people with American footballs that they'll pass to help people chat
Oh,
around,
that's
sort of
fun.
standard sort of things, or something they'll throw at someone and see if they catch it. You see those videos on YouTube and stuff all the time. Okay, wicked. So that was just a thing. I wanted to talk about community and going to events because I think events are where the magic happens. All right, so we're going to move to the actual talking to you about you. And when I looked, it said, and then it's really funny because I love this about you as well. It said that you were a CV writer and career coach. Is that right?
I did get
Before,
started with that. Yeah. My first thoughts for LinkedIn all the way back in around 2008, 2009 was it's for your resume.
yeah,
Back then, you could not become a content creator on LinkedIn. I know that sounds like funny thing to say, but you couldn't post the way that you post now. The only
Yeah.
people that could post
Platform
were
didn't
like
allow it. Yeah.
Richard Branson or Sarah Blakely could post or something, but like they couldn't let the ordinary people post. I'm being tongue in cheek there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it only really tipped over when LinkedIn allowed everyone to start posting and everyone could get a newsletter. Not everyone could even have a newsletter all the way up until 2 or 3 years ago. They didn't
Yeah.
even let people have a newsletter. So the idea that LinkedIn was for content strategy and posting, it's pretty brand new in the world of social media, which I think is why LinkedIn gets a bad rap a little bit because it wasn't known for that. And that's okay. It's okay to change who
Yeah.
you are.
Yeah, it took a while, and that's why there's still that weird view that people can't be social on LinkedIn, which is just
Yeah.
blows my mind. What interested me the most is I think the people that are listening to this podcast, my audience, the target audience is really like people that want to start a YouTube channel or people that want to grow their YouTube channel. And a lot of those people are people that have jobs at the moment and they want to move into being a creator, a full-time creator of some sort. And whether you were doing it full-time or not at the time as your own business, it still feels like something that could have been a side hustle that you moved and you went full creator mode in 2018 and you seem to have a time where you decided that was going to be the case. So can you just talk us through like how did you decide that you were really going to go? You said right at the start about focus. So how did you decide you were going to focus on it and make it a big thing?
Well, I would say the best thing to think about for any creator that you follow for inspiration or advice is I think the best ones are the ones that maybe have a bit of a roller coaster or not just a straight path and that's it because that is not the reality for pretty much anyone. So, I did have my first job out of college, and I stayed with that job, climbing the good old corporate ladder for 10 years. I'm very happy. I was not looking to become anything other than a chemical engineer meets sustainability expert, because that's what I was doing in corporate America for Fortune 500 company. And I got laid off during that. I got let go during that economic crisis of 2008, the housing crisis. So that was my first experience with going, oh, wait, it isn't just a straight line. I have to take charge of my career. And the very first thing I did was I was like, oh, I'll get my own website. I'll launch my own business. I will get my own business set up with all the business, like, whether that be, I don't know what to call it, like all the different like legal elements in place and make
Yeah.
sure that I own for the rest of my life Judy Fox and the brand Judy Fox. Cause that is something no one in my mind at that moment could ever take away from me. And I think it's slightly traumatizing when you lose your job for the very first time
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
during a layoff.
You know, the thing is that that realization is actually because you at school, and I assume in the American education system, it's the same. You're almost bred to be a worker bee of some description. And so you think that a career means, yeah, you might jump a couple of times, but you just never consider that actually someone could lay you off and then you've got to find a new job, or maybe even during a crisis like that, there's not as many jobs and then you've got to be resourceful and do something yourself. And so this idea of like security doesn't exist, maybe how school and university sold it to us as the dream, you know. So that sounds great. So you decided to do that stuff then, and then what
But I
about
did go back to corporate.
okay,
So, yes, I will say it took me all the way until 2018. So, it took me 10 more years. So, between that period of time, I went to corporate, back full time in my business, went back to corporate, full time in my business. I did that cycle twice
yeah,
because two things. Number one, I had major life changes that affected my decisions of what I wanted to do full time. And I will say the whole time though, it made me realize you should always hold on to whatever business you have because there is no guarantee in the corporate world. But again, I came back to the mindset there will always be a guarantee that I have Judy Fox. I have me, myself, and I. So as long as I'm kicking here on this planet, I have myself. So I and beyond grateful for that because I could hold that. When you think about the resume world and that concept, I was able to continuously leverage the fact that I was running my own business no matter what was a part of that business. I was able to keep growing and keep my skills up in any kind of perceived gap. And I never had a gap on my resume ever again because I just had my own business. So I kind of want to put that out there because that was looking back in hindsight, that is the best decision I ever made because
Yeah.
when I had a major life event, I ended up as a single mom in 2014. And I was able to immediately, because I'd been networking on LinkedIn, growing my LinkedIn, I think at that point I was maybe up to just 2014, maybe about 2 or 3,000 followers and connections. It wasn't crazy, but that is a lot of people when you really think
Yeah, yeah.
about
It's enough to
how
be
that could work.
sustained. Yeah, it's like a side hustle or whatever you need at that
I
point.
was
That's
able to pull the
enough.
trigger.
Yeah,
I was able to make a post in 2014 because when I found myself, I had been, what's that word? I had been feeding and supporting my community, and whether I knew I was growing a community or not, I didn't know. I just knew I was able to make a post on LinkedIn saying I needed an opportunity. I had a life change and needed to go back to corporate because of that. I was no longer going to be able to run this business I had started full time. And I kept my business on the side while I went back to corporate. But I was able to find a corporate position at that time very quickly because I
yeah.
made a post on LinkedIn and it just flooded my opportunities.
You could almost say that the foundations and the stars were there, ready to be taken because you
Yeah, because
knew,
I
because you
didn't
tried it
ask
out.
anything from them until
Yeah,
that moment. I had just been giving. I had been in that world of, hey, I have a lot of things going well for me right now. And I was running my business full time. So I went full time somewhere around the gap. Again, it went like this. So it around 2011, 2012, I was full time in my business and I was traveling the world and I was
yeah.
living that online creator's dream of I went to New Zealand. I went to Kingdom of Tonga. I lived in Germany. I was loving it. I was location independent in 2012. It was beautiful.
Good. So you made the change then. You did the corporate thing, and I think a lot of people, myself included, can appreciate what that's like and going through that kind of natural cycle as you leave education. But then you decided to go full focus, full steam ahead in 2018. So it was 2018 really the things really changed, right?
Yes.
The
I
big time.
was
So
doing that kinda like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I actually
yeah,
went part-time in corporate. I negotiated a new contract, and that lasted for a while, but I also saw the writing on the wall that I was like, "I have to decide, and I'm gonna take a bet on me," and I wanted to throw up. It had that moment of on that uncertainty, kinda like jumping off the cliff, like,
yeah,
kinda like going to an event where you don't know anybody feeling. It's that just that overwhelming sense of, I have 0 concept of what's gonna really happen next, like 0.
yeah,
And then I think to me, that also was exciting. That also made me feel really alive and excited. So I was leaning into it. I definitely read books like When to Jump and, all these kind of like,
big
how do
leap.
you know?
Yeah,
But I think the number one thing that is key is that I had already started learning how to kind of jump in 2008.
yeah,
So
yeah. You'd set some of the seed. You'd laid some of the
I
seeds.
had
By the
10
sounds of it, you were
years.
building the personal brand. Yeah, and I suppose from my perspective in the UK, I did some of the same in the IT world. I used to fix computers as a side hustle. The only issue I got to is one company I worked for said it was a conflict of interest. So I think the caveat to all of this is if you are building a personal brand at the same time as having a corporate role, just make sure there's no conflict of interest because trust me, that was not a nice experience I went through. But if you can do that and if you can build your personal brand at the same time, I think that's the seeds, that's the foundations that you laid. And then maybe the jump is less of a jump then if you know
It did feel
you've been through
less.
that in and out process.
And I had already started making content. And here's the real kicker that I would take away too. Is the key in that experience of having 1 foot in the corporate world, 1 foot out and doing part-time for a period of time and having the side hustle, it was taking the pressure off the content strategy. So a
Yeah.
lot of people will start their content strategy, and underneath there is a feeling of this has to work. This has to get views. This has to convert. And I didn't have that. And that is the beauty of having income that was coming in at a very solid level that I had negotiated, at least at the part-time level, that I could create content from a space of freedom, and
Yeah.
that it was not easy to do both. I will admit it took a lot of effort to run two things concurrently, but the ability to content create was literally one of my best moments of just having such good energy, not caring. I went to Vid Summit, I think, in that moment in 2018 was a little bit of that moment where I was like, I don't need anything from this. I just need to have a great time, create
Yeah.
good content, but I don't need income to come from this. It's being covered because I have this part time and steady income that I can count on. It wasn't my full income. So I knew I needed to start building it up and build up my business. But it took so much of the pressure off, which did allow me to convert business. And it's like that thing that everyone, the more you want it, you think, why am I not converting business? And sometimes you have to like stop acting like you need it to happen because we can read the
Yeah.
seal, we
Desperation
can see
effect.
the
Totally. Yeah.
desperation
Yeah. Yeah.
sweat.
I totally understand that. And I've been in that position. And I spoke to one of the previous episodes is Jesse, the first interview actually that's been published. And Jesse, I remember his journey was like when they got to 10,000 subscribers or something like that. I remember there was a point where he put a post in the group both in and he said, I think YouTube's just about to pay me the same amount of money as my corporate job. I can leave now. What should I do? And everyone was like, jump, go, get out of there. But that is the lesson there really is just the fact that by maintaining what they already had, or in your case, cutting your hours back just to give you a bit more freedom and space to create, but without that desperation, it is huge. And it kind of goes against a little bit about what a lot of mentors and business people say. And they're like, oh, you need to focus and you need to go all in on this thing. And it's like, yeah, you can say that, but you don't have my bills and my family to look after. You can't just say, and I really hate that people just say that and they say it out loud and think it's okay, but you don't understand the people's position. So it needs to be like really caveated with, if you're in a position to fully focus on the thing, but until you're at that point, do what Judi did or do what Jesse did and just do both. And that might mean that sometimes, like now, for me, it's a podcast at 7 p.m. It might be you creating on a Saturday morning when you've got a bit more free time. Do what you can until you get to that point where this is, it's bringing in the money, because you'll be thankful for it when you're not desperate for the cash, for sure.
Yeah, I nostalgically look back on some of that content and the freedom and the not having to even worry where the hell that content was going to go. Like, I
Yeah.
think that is kind of why I look at different channels. It almost makes people's heads scratch because they go, but I see success, but the success you see potentially now, there you have to scroll back to see
Yeah. Yeah.
where
Go
were
back
they
5 years.
having an amazing time, and they possibly weren't doing all the, this needs an opt-in, this needs a downloadable, you need to be collecting emails. Oh my gosh. The focus on acting like early days of whatever it is you're creating, you need to constantly collect everyone's emails and you need to have that funnel set up and it needs to be perfect. That is crap sometimes. That can
Yeah.
hurt you. That can hurt your growth and slow down your trajectory because you're not focusing on the actual thing. Is people want to get to know you. People want the thing you're trying to show them or entertain them with. And now you're just trying to put all these elements into place and it's looking really janky. I don't know how else to say it.
Yeah, and I feel it more now, coming from a place of not desperation. I feel it more when I meet someone that is desperate and they immediately want to talk about work. And for me, when I make choices, my choices are emotional and they're about people I connect with. If there's 10 people that do the same service of you as you, which one am I going to go for? The one that puts a billboard out there and says, this is what I do, or the person that I've had dinner with, or that we've had a chat about our dog or pets or whatever, they're the human connections that really make you go, well, you know what? I know that guy, bit more expensive than the one over here, but actually we went for dinner, really like what they said, or how the way they introduced me to people, how they made me feel, that makes a difference. So yeah, I do totally understand that. Right. So let's talk about moving away from that, because I do agree on those fronts, but I want to talk a little bit more about being
Let's find
strategic
something
then.
we disagree on. I'm just
Yeah.
kidding.
Well, I'm sure we'll find something in
Let's
it.
argue.
Yeah. So I think you did that and it was fun and you was enjoying it. Is it still fun? Just as a side note, is it still fun? You're still enjoying it as much?
Yes. Some again, everything has a different part that you enjoy though
Right.
too. So
Good. For
yeah,
for professional, for contractual reasons, yes, it is. Yeah, still love it.
I would say it evolves to different things and it evolves
Yeah,
with
of
all
course.
of
Yeah.
your life impact that happened to you. Like
Yeah.
I just had a house fire, which is super random to share. It changes what you put out into the world or how you show up. But to me, it becomes where did you put your boundaries and how did you set things up? And I think for me, that's important to keep asking yourself every single year that you do this. So you don't burn out. You don't feel like you've extended your boundaries to a place where it isn't fun anymore and you're being forced. That's going back to being an employee of your own making.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah.
I don't want to be an employee of my business. I want to own it. I want to
Yeah.
own my life experience. So yeah, I have to constantly ask and answer myself, what is the result? What's happening next? So, and I'll just share, I don't believe in being a consistent content creator.
Okay.
Ooh.
Good. Well, so this is really funny because on the way here, I was on the train back. Mr. B said something recently. Saw it on TubeBuddy's channel. It was a quote, and he was saying about, "Don't worry about being consistent. Just create great content, in whatever schedule." And I was like, "Great, I can talk about that because it's something I disagree with, but with context." So
Yes.
tell
Everything has,
me,
I'll give you
yeah,
my
yeah,
context. You give
give
me
you a
your
yeah,
context.
go for it, yeah, because consistency is definitely what I
We'll
want to
do
talk
rock,
about.
paper,
Go
scissors. Who
for it.
goes first?
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
no, you go for it. You go for it.
I would say there, it's not a matter of if something's going to happen in your life, it's a matter of when.
Yeah,
So if you trained your brain to think that success is linked to consistent content creation, and then you have to create this consistent stream of content, whatever it is you've decided, a YouTube video channel, there you go. And it has to always consistently come out at Tuesday, 8 a.m. That is setting yourself up potentially for a future failure that you've linked that so closely
yeah,
that it will not give you freedom for any life changes that will happen. And it is not a matter of if they're going to happen, it's a matter of when. Been through enough things.
yeah.
I had no idea lightning was going to strike my house. And I'm really glad that I don't believe in, I didn't set my mind up to link my success in my business to
Yeah,
constant content creation. And here's what I believe is the thing you should be constant about is be constantly networking with the people you have relationships with. I may not be consistent in other things. I haven't posted a podcast and there's a lot of reasons for that, but it comes down to I can consistently network with someone amazing like you and be on your podcast, and that can replace what may have been something that I can't do right now. And here's instead, be a craveable Netflix show. Craveable Netflix show is something that I don't care if it needs to take a break and a breather. It'll come back and I'm there for season 5, season 10. I never wanted to go off the air. And I'd rather be a cradle for Netflix show that never goes off the air.
yeah. So in that context, totally understand and totally agree with you. Who knew after just saying something we disagree with, we'd find something immediately? That's called manifestation, I think. So I totally agree with that. From my perspective, when I heard what Mr. Beast was saying, it was like, well, actually, now, and you talked about it now being like year 5 of where he's at. When you look at it that way and having a team of producers who come up with like content ideas and then they decide and they've got a month-long schedules of when things are going to go, plus having the demand of being the craveable Netflix
You
person
do have demand.
means that
Yes.
you have more freedom to not be consistent because actually what they're waiting for is the next big video of yours. You know, the Squid Games thing is Mr. Beast's big thing at the time, right? And he's always looking to improve that. So, but for my people that are just getting started, what we do is we build a bank of content before we start publishing. So I say to them, build like 4 to 8 or maybe even 12 videos ahead of time. So when life does get in the way, then you've got something to put in there and you continue your consistent schedule. So it's more about batch filming and that kind of thing. Same as what I'm doing with the podcast. We're creating like 8, maybe 12 episodes before we launch the thing. So it's just context, and it's about like you're part of the journey. Like if you're in year 5 and you have that freedom, you have the financial income and all that kind of stuff that's going on, fine, you can be less consistent because you have got that demand. You know, the Fox Rocks
Yeah.
hashtag that you've got, if you go and, I mean, you're there endlessly on that hashtag
I
because
feel like we're
you've
saying
been
this.
doing it
I
for
may
so,
I
we
will
are
double
saying the
down and
same thing.
say
We are. Yeah.
I agree that you just shouldn't marry those two together.
Yes. Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
I don't this mantra that is so loud out there that the only success
Yeah.
is because they link the word success with I was a consistent content creator. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh
Yeah.
my God, stop marrying those two
And
because
actually,
that will
when people
set
get
you up for future failure.
yeah, and when people get disappointed by the views or whatever they're getting, they were like, "Well, I've been
That will
consistent, so
change
why
too.
why is that not happening?" And it's like, well, but you forgot about all the other elements that come in. It's not. There's a compounding effect that happens with consistency. There's promotion. There's algorithms. There's SEO. There's all the other things that happen. And consistency, like you say, consistency and success. Those two things are not the only things. So you got to think about the bigger picture. So I
Yeah.
think we are agreeing.
And I agree. If you're early in your career, I think here's what gets me. Some of these big creators are on these amazing panels and they're sharing some great advice from stage, but consistent sounds so loud from the stage sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's so loud. It just fills the auditorium of the echo of what works. And that's where I'm like, I want to like say there's other things to be consistent. Like maybe you're a consistent commenter and a consistent community member, a consistent collaborator, a consistent behind the scenes DM supporter. I don't know what you're consistent at, but there's other
Well,
things.
Well, tell me this then. So in 2018, we were talking at some metrics. You've got these on your website, so we just take them straight off there. 5 million views in 2 years, million views in 6 weeks, 2,000 to 35,000 followers from your LinkedIn profile. This is all 2018, right? So
Yeah.
what my question to you is, were you consistent during that time? What did you strategically do at that time on LinkedIn, do you think, that made the difference? And maybe this links well to your accelerator as well, but is there anything you can share with us that you think
I
immediately jumps out
was
at you?
I was not I never focused on a strategy of consistently posting because
Okay.
I was just having the time of my life. So I just never had to sit down and make myself think that way, which is a privilege, I guess. And it's a space that I could be in because I was working that part
Yeah.
time situation. And I was just having a really freaking good time. So I just wanted to post. I was so excited. I couldn't wait to get back to the computer to like put it all together, put the video together. Like it's just such a fun outlet. But I will say the number one thing that I was mentally saying I wanted to be consistent at was commenting.
Yeah.
Really, really growing the energy of how I showed up and just publicly went out there.
So
The
we're talking about
networking,
engagement really, right?
yeah,
So it's
engaging on LinkedIn is a lot different than so imagine, to be honest, LinkedIn and TikTok remind me of each other when it comes to commenting, and I'll
yeah.
explain. I will watch a TikTok video and I'll go to the comments, and then the comments even crack me up even more. And we can also see how much the comments are getting upvoted. There's like comments I've had comments get almost 100,000 likes on a comment on TikTok
Yeah.
because it's hilarious. The comments can be thoughtful, they continue the conversation, they are context for that video sometimes. I like love the comments. I even have channels I follow on TikTok that are literally like, let's go to the comments.
Yeah, yeah,
so
totally, yeah. It's a
so
strategy.
base
It's a well-known strategy as well, right? It's
yeah,
leveraging other people's audience. You want to find your audience, you know who your audience are, Go and find the big creators, go to the comments. All those people commenting are commenting because they like the creator. So if that's your audience as well, they're going to probably like your content as well.
So
So it's
on
a great strategy.
2018, I learned that strategy for LinkedIn, not on
Yeah.
my content, on other people's content. If I was an early content writer, if I wrote a, let's put Gary Vaynerchuk in the hot seat. If I wrote a comment within the first 10 minutes of Gary putting up a post on LinkedIn, his audience saw my post and he has 4 million or some. I don't even know back then how many he has now. It doesn't matter. But I got the attention of the audience following Gary because my comment became top comment, if that makes, there's no
Yeah.
official top comment, but when I'm getting hundreds of likes on a comment on LinkedIn, that grew me on LinkedIn. That allowed me to not just have to create content, but also just pop and take advantage of being right there, right in the moment. And I literally would hover on some big account just for the moment when I thought they would
Yeah.
post. And I would track when I thought Gary's team was going to post and marked down the time of day and put it in my calendar. That is a strategy. And did it work? I
Yes.
got the
So
attention. I got invited into VaynerMedia. I got to have Claude Silver on my podcast because the team recognized me. It's a valuable comment. You can't just comment some crap. Like, you can't be like, good post, Gary.
well, the thing is, Gary talks about it himself, right? He says, I respond to all my comments. I don't know if that is still the case now, but
Yeah, I don't.
when I think about like these people are telling you the answers, people really think, oh, well, maybe that won't work for me, whatever. It's like, look, just do what you're being told. So far, you've told us you're having fun on LinkedIn, which everybody says you can't have fun on LinkedIn because it's
You
a boring
can.
platform, right? It's just for, you know, corporate people. No, just totally rubbish. If you change who you're following, find the right people to follow that are just like you, people that you love being around, you find that it's a
Hang out with me.
exactly, yeah. And then commenting on those people and that engagement. But the problem with commenting, Judy, of course, is that it takes effort. And is effort what people want to put in when they want to post a video and it go viral? It's just not the only answer. There's got to be more to it.
I would say
Um,
it's a skill that I built up, a really good quality comment. And it's a skill. I wasn't born with it. I mean, hello, I wasn't born like knowing how to comment on social media.
yeah,
But yeah, it's such an amazing hack. And when I say hack, it's like I noticed when Threads launched. And they said, why
yeah,
don't I try out my early commenting on large creator concept on Threads? And it worked
yeah.
because there's an art to it and it's really powerful to just start it so you can actually start to get better. It's like anything, come out of the gate writing the most amazing comment that gets you 1,000 likes and comments and
Yeah.
whatever. But I've done that on TikTok. I've done it on every channel because it works.
I can hear when you said that, like you don't come out of the gate right, and I can hear all the people that are saying in their head, "I'm not funny. I have nothing funny to say. I don't know
You
what
can
to
add
say."
context, you can add
Yeah,
data to a post.
absolutely. You can do anything, right? Like, it's just the reason why I talk to people about creating it is, and the thing I get people to do is create a video, any video, whatever it is, right? Is because the process of creating something opens your brain up. So it's only then do you discover that some people do find you funny. And actually, there is a lot you have to know about expertise that you've got in your brain. It falls out of you, but it is just an unused muscle, right? Like commenting, it's a skill that you've just got to learn over time.
And I'm trying to think of the dates, but I think it was around 2017 that I realized, whoa, if I start commenting, if I comment
Yeah.
on Gary, if I comment, it was 2017 that I started that. And I really honed in on Gary because I just liked it. And his posts lended themselves to kind of easy comments that
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
could kick out really, really fast. And by the time it was around 2019 is when I got to go into Vayner and do that and record that podcast, record content. So it took 2 years, but
Yeah.
again, that's the power of being consistent on that. He
Yeah.
wasn't paying attention to my posts.
But
He wasn't
eventually he
coming
was.
to me. No, his team was.
His
But I
team
knew
was.
his
Yeah.
team
Yeah.
was. Yeah, because I got to meet his team. So
Yeah. And of course, and then presumably now you don't have to comment as much. You get comments organically. You've got a team that will help you with some of that stuff as well. So it's not like you have to do it forever, but you do have to do it for a while. And in your case, well, you got to that point in 2 years, but actually 2018, if you started in 2017, 2018 was when it really took off. So
Yeah.
you had a learning phase, almost like the algorithms have a learning phase. And then once you'd learned the phase during that period, you saw the compounding impact. And I wonder if actually it wasn't like a big post that actually got you all the views. It was just the algorithm seeing, hey, this is a big engager. We should give her more focus, give
Yes.
her more reach,
LinkedIn, okay, how do I say this? I like to think of some things in life like I'm just playing a board game and I'm just moving my little character. So if I think of my points that I'm gonna get each time I get to roll and I get to do my thing. So I'm like landing on the square of commenting and I'm like, I got 100 comments, I get $10 or 10 points
Yeah.
back or whatever it is. I get my little tickets from the machine of skee ball or whatever. I don't know. I'm mixing my game analogies, but I love gamification in my mind of what I'm doing. So, yes, I will say though that LinkedIn rewards my account. That's specific to LinkedIn. They will reward my account based on how much I'm commenting,
Yeah.
period. So, for all of you, if you really did want to get active on LinkedIn, it's not just a fun thing I'm saying. Commenting in general on LinkedIn gets your content more points to be visible. I
Yeah.
think of it as like a point system because it's easy for me to go, I got lots of points on my game board today. So
Yeah. And it is absolutely every platform. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. You talked about TikTok being the same, like you'll notice the viral videos are the ones with the most comments, the most likes. It is just true. And it doesn't matter. Austin Armstrong, another one of the guests, he talks about it doesn't matter whether it's good or bad engagement. Like if someone hates the post or is pointing out a spelling mistake that you've got, like it's still engagement. So it's just going to help.
same thing on LinkedIn. I love that he
Yeah.
says
Yeah.
that, but when you do something on LinkedIn, you need to make it a clear statement so people can agree and disagree. If you
Yeah.
have a wishy washy post with 10 million caveats and trying to cover everyone's perspective, nobody is like, okay, that covered everything I could have said in the comments. You kind of have to make it a bit of a strong statement
Yeah. And
and
it's
we'll
like you
agree
said
and
about
disagree.
it's great to have a disagreement, right? Because it is just like,
And
how
that's what we
boring
just
would it
did.
be if, yeah, how boring would it be if we didn't find different ways of it? Like, neither of us can be right and neither of us can be wrong. Like, it's just our opinions.
We rewind
Yeah,
and we go back to that moment. I literally said, consistent content is not like I said something strong because I wanted to get a reaction because I know that's how we operate. It's not that I
yeah.
am so obnoxiously married to that I couldn't. I agree with you.
Yeah, yeah. There's a way to receive the response to it as well. And I think that's the point where people go wrong is because they try to prove people wrong in their response. And in fact, actually just being okay with somebody saying, oh, I don't agree with that. And this is why. And you can just say, okay, cool. Well, thanks so
I
much for
don't have
commenting or whatever.
so I did make a quote wall when I started content online. I
Yeah.
made a wall of quotes to keep, and I didn't know I was doing. Now I can look in hindsight and go, that wall quote kept me sane. And one of the quotes on that wall is, "You do not have to attend every argument that you're invited to."
Yeah. That's
I
good.
like that quote because every day
That's
I look
good.
at it and I'm like, if you're a content creator, you're going to be technically invited to a lot of arguments.
Yeah, yeah. You're
If you
opening the
even
floodgate.
line, you're invited to arguments.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
don't have to
Absolutely.
join them all.
Totally. Totally. Totally agree. I think it's a good point to make completely. Look, we could talk forever, Judy. I don't
Yes,
want
we
to take
could.
all of your time. Thank you so much. The one thing I wanted you to tell me is about just the last thing, just to finish on the consistency thing, is we talked just off air about the fact that I messaged you 2 years after I originally messaged you about the podcast. And you said, and I felt really bad because I sent the message and I said, will you still be a guest on my podcast? You said yes. And I said, it's been a year since I messaged you. And then I looked and it had been 2 years. So I was like, so sorry, it's been 2 years. And then I just laughed. And you said something about what permission it had given you for your own podcast. So I just want you to talk about that. a little bit, because often when we do stuff and we like, I'm a really a big believer in just trying stuff out, and sometimes it's crap and it doesn't work and you can just move on. Like, nobody's come in to go, the consistency police are not going to come in and say, "Oh my God, you didn't do the thing you said you were going to do." Like, just give it a go. But in this case, I didn't give it a go at all. So talk about that for us for a second.
Yeah, no, you've made my inspiration quote wall that I literally have, which is this idea that there's this overwhelming feeling that connects us to moments in our life that we didn't follow through. We didn't respond. We mess up. Like, there's
Yeah.
this feeling that I messed up. Like, I didn't do the thing I said I was going to, I don't know, whatever it is, we've all experienced it. And if you're online, you're being asked to connect and talk and network probably to an unsustainable amount of people.
Yeah. So,
It's it's a mind-blowing amount of people sometimes that you can get into conversation with, no matter what your audience size. There's so much activity online. There's no way you can follow up and be perfect everywhere online, but I still feel like we want to. And so this feeling is released when I recognized my own response to getting that message from you, which was just pure joy, like joy. And I was like, wait, I don't care that it was 2 years. There's no like thanks. There's no, I'm
yeah.
actually just happy that I'm on his radar, that he asked me again when it was time, and that you were very just practical about it. Like, it's just a
Yeah.
fact.
Yeah.
Like, whatever. It is not something to be ashamed about, living in shame and carrying that shame, and which then doesn't allow you to move forward to create the next thing you might actually create, which is now this recording.
Yeah.
So it releases me. When I looked at that, I was like, wow, I should just follow up with somebody that I left them hanging, because I've left plenty of, I just have.
There's many people that want you to follow up. They're not sitting there waiting for you to, potentially, but like, just the fact that you are going to follow up, it's a good way to kind of close the shame. If there is shame in yourself, like, and when I looked at it, I was like, my list had changed over the 2 years, of course. But when I went to all the people that I'd asked, because I'd asked about 20 people, I was like, a lot has changed for those people. Maybe they won't want to do it anymore. Maybe they're too big or whatever. But I just thought I'll just go for it. The worst thing that someone says is no, and then you've not lost anything, because it was a no before. Either an unknown answer is a no before anyway. So yeah, I just thought that was important to talk about, especially because we all have the best intentions when it comes to consistency and creating content. If you fall off the wagon, just get back on, even if it's 2 years later. Wicked. Last thing I'll ask you just before we go, of course, how can people reach you? Tell us a little bit about any products or anything that you want to talk about that you've got to offer.
Yeah, you can go to Judi, that is the key, judyfox.com, or just go to LinkedIn, Judy Fox. I'm always grateful for a follow on hashtag Fox Rocks on LinkedIn. I think it's fun to have a hashtag on that platform, and you will be in a elite group of people because there's about 1,000, and I'm trying to think how many followers on that hashtag. You'll be part of the early 1,000 true fan vibe. So
Get
I
in
will say I
early.
will mail out Fox, like, little, oh my gosh. I mail these out to people based on literally being fans, following my hashtag FoxRock. When it comes to my business, I will say, I'm headed in the direction of putting out some videos that people can level up on LinkedIn. The number one thing I'm focused on, that I'm getting a lot of people connected to, is earning them a top voice badge now on LinkedIn that has
Great.
been opened up beyond just the top few. It's being rolled out, and now I'm a top voice. So I
Excellent.
am going to release that because I was working with Doc Rock with Ecamm, and he got a top voice as a content creator with my.
Excellent.
So
Amazing. We'll stick the links. If you send me the links to those things, I'll stick them in the show notes afterwards as well.
perfect.
Thanks so much for your time. It's an absolute pleasure after all this time to see you again and for you to
I
be on the
loved it.
podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for
Right.
having me.
Bye bye.